All right. I believe we have Tom on the line right now. Let's connect him. Let's get this interview going. Tom, it's Mike. How are you?
Good, Mike. How you doing? Thanks for having me
Hey,
on.
hey, anytime I get to talk to a fellow New Yorker, I'm always happy.
We're upstate New York. We're a little.
I know.
I don't know if that's the same thing or not. But
I was just going to say that for some reason New Yorkers seem to think people from upstate don't count. They're not part of New York City, and it goes the same way down.
We're off to a good start. Nice.
No, I would say we're all New Yorkers.
I agree, 100%. Absolutely.
It's great to have you on here today. Listen, I love it that this album from Harbinger is being re-released by Heaven and Hell Records. I mean, to me, the album came out at a time, and the band came out at a time when the music scene was kind of changing and evolving and getting ready to go into another phase. And a lot of bands, hit the scene like you guys did and kind of got lost and forgotten about. But I'm glad that labels still remember it, people still remember, they want to hear this really great music.
Yeah, we definitely, if we came out in 81 as opposed to 91, we would have had a little bit different history maybe than we had. But, in hindsight right now, time doesn't really matter. The album still means a lot to us, and this has been an incredible opportunity to have it reissued. Absolutely.
I agree. When I think about the band, it seems like the band, I don't want to say it was in turmoil from the beginning, but it seems like just things never clicked or really got going. Is that safe to say from like somebody from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I think, when you live where we do, we just, of course, started the conversation about the differences between you being in New York and in the city or in that area and me being upstate. We have a degree of separation. When you're in a city, whether it be Los Angeles or New York, you're always one person away from somebody that made it or somebody that can get you a break. And when you're where we are, we're 6 degrees of separation from that. And it was really difficult to just get any traction whatsoever. And over time, I think that really wore some of the guys in the band out, as far as just not having anybody to look up to that had made it or that could get you where you needed to go.
You definitely need the support of other bands in the system for each band to kind of further themselves along. Talking about being upstate, what part of upstate did you guys come from? Because in like the Cortland area, which is like kind of like the midway point, there was a very active scene going on in the mid '80s. You guys further up north?
There was. We were in. I'm from Norwich right now, and I kind of grew up in that area. But we were in a triangle between Binghamton, Syracuse, and Utica. And Cortland. We would get up to Falso's Music actually once in a while and buy some stuff from there's a very famous music store up there that the Rods had a lot of connections to. So I guess in that way there was always maybe the possibility of getting an interest, but not the way that it is in the city. We just never felt like we could just make a phone call or open a door and something good would happen. It always just seemed like there was, again, a lot of steps you'd have to take, and everybody had to be willing to take them and put up with the lumps, and that wasn't always the case.
Sure. People forget, these were pre-internet days where back then, you really did have to kind of be in, maybe Manhattan or Los Angeles, or one of the main hubs, to really, be involved in a very active scene. Today, with the internet, you put your music up, you click a button, people from all over the world can hear what you're doing, and there's a bigger support system that way if you can even get yourself found on the internet today.
Yeah, and I think how we felt was the reason that album, The Inevitable, means so much to us is it was 10 songs. Anybody that was in our position would go in a studio and they would cut 3-4 tracks at the most and have just a little demo. So putting a full 10 songs out was quite an undertaking considering we did it ourselves. And we kind of had the idea that people might notice that, you're not getting a sample size, you're getting the full meal here, what this band is capable of doing. And, did our best. And I'm, again, glad you enjoy it today, but at the time it was, it was hard to sell.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's funny because I look at your stuff and you and Jeffrey are the Lennon and McCartney of the hard rock heavy metal scene. You two guys have been together recording and playing on and off.
Simmons and Stanley. You gotta go Simmons. Yeah, because our band mirrored. The dynamics of Kiss. We mirrored Kiss exactly. Guy for guy, the 4 guys. I mean, each personality fits into a certain slot on it, and Jeff and I definitely were Gene and Paul.
Yeah, no drummer in the band except for Machine, who gets the credit for the drumming. Was it hard?
Mac Hine. We called him Mac Hine. Yeah.
Was it hard to find a drummer from where you were? It's just maybe nobody clicked.
Yeah, when I joined, I was the last guy to join Harbinger. Now we had all known each other over the years, and we had never been in a band, all four of us at one time. And I joined the band, and their drummer lasted about 2 rehearsals with me, and then he called it a day. So yeah, and you can see I'm the Gene Simmons guy in the band. The resident a-hole sometimes. So we basically said, okay, well, we got to keep practicing, so I'll bring my drum machine down and we'll just program everything up. And then, we never found the guy until 93. And then we found a great drummer in 93, and those songs really came alive at that time. But we played out with a drum machine for 91, and we did live shows with it.
Wow. So, how'd that go over? I'm curious.
It went over, it wasn't a dud, it didn't ruin things or anything, but I think it was just a point of curiosity, which was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing here. And I think more to the detriment of us was that we probably didn't look 91. We looked 81. So even I think if we would have just been a little bit more relaxed in the look of the time, that wouldn't have been as big an issue as the drum machine was. But it was awkward. I'm not gonna lie. It had its. We would have incidents where you get off on the drum machine, and what would you do? You'd have to everybody had to get in a huddle and figure out how to get back on. And Jeff, the singer, would start the drum machine with a foot pedal, and he'd get going crazy on stage, and he'd hit the foot pedal, and the song would start over. So we had incidents like that kind of made it rather apparent that was it was not going to be your normal show sometimes. So
yeah, but that does show a lot of initiative too, in a way, because other bands say, what, we don't have a drummer, we're just going to sit around and wait and see what happens. You guys, try to keep this ball rolling. You went out there and you kind of went with it.
Yeah, and you've heard the album. It wasn't an easy album to play. From a musician standpoint, there was a lot going on. We had to find the right guy, and the right guy had to have, the chops of a prog power metal drummer. And the guy that was in the band before, that the songs were a little bit simpler and more basic, and these have a lot of time changes, and it's just more demanding. And it was adventurous. We did what we had to do, and we did it with blinders on, and I don't think we had any choice. You want to play, you want to record, you want to do those things. You chalk it up to just being stupid, dumb, and young, and doing whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Well, you talked before about you being the Gene Simmons of the band, sometimes having to be the resident asshole. But isn't that kind of like important for every band to have that one guy? Because, you go to work at a job 9 to 5, you have your boss who does that to you, but the boss makes sure the job gets done and that he furthers things and moves it along. So doesn't a band kind of need somebody like that to really make things happen? Because it is a business when you think about it.
I was the guy coming in, which probably made it a little awkward. But as I said, we knew the other 3 guys in the band, 3 of us went to high school together, and the other one, the other guitar player, Todd, we've known. And I think that Jeff and I had been in bands before together. So we had recorded together, so we had a little bit of relationship. But the other 2 hadn't actually been in a band with me, so I think there was that kind of, that trepidation of I heard that he's a little hard to deal with or whatnot. But yeah, that band does need that guy, and no band works equitably on all fronts. There's always a couple guys that are just gonna do more than other people, and I was just one of those guys. And Jeff was the same way. Did what you had to do, and you carried people on your back, and sometimes you carried the drum machine on your back too. So.
Well, being the last guy to join the band, like I said, you came in last to the band, you're a guitar player, you're a songwriter. You kind of like just jump in and start like taking over songwriting duties, and you kind of like ease your way into that, not to kind of rock the boat with the other guys who've maybe been in there before you're doing it first.
No, I definitely had an idea of, and Jeff knew this. So coming in, I had been living in San Francisco, and I returned home, and they had a band Harbinger, and I heard the tape. I went down to see him play, and so they had caught my interest. And the two songs that are the bonus tracks on this CD are the two songs that Jeff had handed me that made me go, oh, yeah, I need to be in this band. And Jeff knows, or he knew what he was getting when I joined him. I'm sure we had a conversation about, hey, I've got these songs, but it's a little bit more in the direction that I think you want to go in anyway. So let's get a little more power progressive on this. And Billy, the bass player, he was in the Maiden and Priest and Queensryche, which were the three bands that we kind of modeled ourselves after. And the other guitar player, Todd, he was more of a guitar guy. He liked Warren DeMartini and George Lynch and Eddie and whatever. So he added a little kind of cool element to our mix. And nobody had any problems other than the drummer that was there previously, but the three guys had no issue with the music change.
What was the music like before you joined? I mean, was it more in the commercial area, more poppy?
The two songs that you heard that are on the CD are more in the vein of what Harbinger became, which is why I was drawn to it. But then when I heard the other songs that they had demoed, it was definitely had a more of a rock pop sensibility to it, and it just it was a one guitar band. Now it's a two guitar band, and so we're gonna model this after these bands that were our influences anyway. So yeah, it was just a little too happy for me, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, besides all the trials and tribulations that come with just being at a band, members getting along, writing music, trying to make it in the scene. We were saying earlier, it's also the 90s, and even though, metal and hard rock was still kind of high, up there in 91, 92, not long after, it just completely dropped and changed, and the scene became completely different. Did that affect the band, and what happened to it after that? Because I think you went to about 93, 94, you were saying.
Yeah, no, I don't think it affected the band because I don't think we understood what was happening. It didn't have any, I don't think it had any bearing on our direction. And in fact, when we got into 94, we became more Pantera-ish, as far as how we sounded and the drop tuning and did some of that. So we have some stuff that's actually a lot more brutal than what was on there. So we were trying to make the change, but I don't think we consciously at the time had considered that the bands that we were influenced by, because, Halford was leaving and Dickinson had been leaving his situation, and Queensryche had not really kind of lived up to their early tracks getting into the 90s, but we just didn't, to us, that was still the great stuff that we wanted to emulate, and we did not see what was happening in the industry, and we just weren't close enough to it to see, so I can't blame that really for anything. It just fizzled.
Yeah.
No place to play, no place to go, and yeah.
It happens. Is it a hard thing to let go when you put that much time and effort into a band? And you say, you know what, it's just, at the end of the line, is it actually kind of a relief because, you feel like you did what you could and it just wasn't happening?
Yeah, I definitely. I felt relief in '98 when I stopped playing live and focused just as being a recording musician. In '94, now it's tough. I mean, we Jeff and I in particular, as I said, we're Gene and Paul. We were gonna stick it out, and it was frustrating because guys would quit, guys would come back, guys would quit, guys would come back. So you couldn't get any traction as far as you couldn't do anything 6 months in advance or 3 months or whatever it is that you need to do to think long term because you were scared to make commitments to things. Not just for shows, but finances and stuff like that really just made you more of a day-to-day operation rather than a future forward-thinking operation.
Yeah, but you and Jeff went on to another band together right after that, didn't you? Was it Archivon or something?
Well, Archivon was the same band as Harbinger. We just had a drummer, and there was another band named Harbinger in the Albany area, and so we said, okay, well, we don't have any hold to the name. We'll easily change the name. Once we got our drummer Brian, and there are some live clips of Archivon playing the Harbinger songs. Those songs really, really were just. I remember the rehearsals the first time we did them with a drummer. It was just an amazing experience to hear them the way that they're supposed to be. And so we continued on as Archivon until '94, And then Jeff and I actually were in a band a couple of years after that, and we've continued to record music now for the last 30 years. So.
Yeah, and I've kind of gone through your catalog over the last weekend. Over those years, I mean, your music, I mean, you've been all over the place. I mean, you really experiment with a lot of different sounds and styles. You've kind of mixed it up. Is that important as a musician to kind of like experiment with everything that's going on out there and kind of what interests you and maybe try something that's maybe not in the realm of what people expect of you?
Yeah, well, there's not really a lot of expectations from people, but we definitely, the only way I could really answer that is to say, I don't like to waste an effort. So if I've written something, I want to record it, and it might be different and it might be kind of odd. And so some of the stuff that we did, we recorded and packaged it simply because we had it and we could. When you're on a label, the label's expecting you to do this and you've got to sound this way. And rightfully so, you've got a fan base that you've got to cater to. But from just from an independent musician, I just, if I had a riff or a song or we had something in back catalog, I just wanted it recorded and archived. It's a timestamp. And that's really the only reason. I would prefer to be doing metal all the time. But as a musician, you do experiment and you're like, we'll put this out. We'll make a finished product out of this and see where it goes.
I don't blame you. Do you ever feel like you're kind of locked in if you stick to one genre, like where you really can't experiment because people wouldn't expect that of you if you put that out?
Well, if you were, a band I love right now is Opeth, and they've kind of turned the corner and decided they've turned their back on the metal side a little bit, and I still think you can experiment and be, both things, and I think I've always tried to do that, and make sure that there was an edge or a progressiveness to what we were doing. We did an acoustic album together because that's just the motif of that particular thing, but it was still dark. It still had an attitude about it, and so I don't like as a metal musician, you're still trying to make a holy grail. At some point, I'm still all these years later. In 2016, my solo album that I put out was finally the achievement that I've been trying to do since '99 when I became just a recording entity, and it took 15 years, and I still want to top that. So.
Yeah. How do you find it today as being a musician and recording? Obviously, it's much easier than it was 25, 30 years ago. I mean, the home studios, the technology, it allows artists to pretty much record anything they want, anywhere they want, any way they want. Do you like it better today the way it is?
Well, recording The Inevitable was one of the best experiences of my life because it meant so much. It seemed an impossible task, and you're just not going to feel that nowadays. It's very easy to do it, and it's everybody's doing it, and there's a glut of it out there. When we did the 10 songs from The Inevitable, it was an achievement. Whether it's people liked it or whether they liked the production or they didn't like the drum machine or whatever, or they loved the songs or they liked the weird songs that you thought were kind of weird, but they still, it doesn't matter. That achievement was so monumental to us at the time, and now it's very easy. I mean, I could sit down and, put out a song tomorrow and it's good and it'll sound great. Production wise, it'll be good. And, so it doesn't have the same, feeling that it did at the time in '91.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. Did you think people forgot about the band over the years as time went on?
Well, I wish we were big enough to have been forgotten. I can't say that. I know that rekindling this, we'll find out. Particularly from people, locally that had seen us that may remember some things, but I don't really know from at the time. I mean, we had some radio play. We were at, did some interviews and things of that nature, and did some shows, obviously around. But I don't really know what kind.
Hey Tom, I think we lost you there. We were just talking about technology. You have to love that. Two people in the same state can't even make a phone call and talk to each other without something going wrong. No, well, you're good. You're coming in loud and clear right now.
Okay.
We were talking about people not remembering the band and forgetting the band and all that other stuff. But do you think now, with the record coming out again and maybe new people discovering the band, and you and Jeff still kind of in touch with each other and recording, would there be a chance that, maybe you might do a reunion show, maybe record more music under the name?
Yeah, I went to landline. I said, screw it.
There you go.
We're going backwards in technology now.
That's right. You know what? The old stuff worked.
Yeah. Well, you were asking about a reunion, and as I said, there's Todd's in West Virginia, and I know health-wise, I don't think he'd be able to do it. So I don't know if we'd ever use the name again, but certainly Jeff and I know from Jeff's perspective that he's, after this kind of re-release and things that have happened, his whole conversation with me was, we need to make sure that we're recording some metal. So I can tell you from Jeff and myself that we will definitely have a focus on Harbinger type material when we record.
Well, that's just as good in my opinion. I mean, to hear you two guys doing some metal again would be phenomenal. I mean, is there anything left over from the old days that you really never got around to recording that might still be out there that you could work on or maybe redo?
Yeah, there might be a track or two that I can think of that probably could be a catalyst of something. We did on my album that came out in 2016 called Fighting 50. We did a song called The People Exchange, and that's really, if you want to hear a modern Harbinger song, that would be one. And then we did a music video for a song called Hail the King. And that one came out great. So those are two really heavy songs that I think would have fit very well into the progression of Harbinger if people wanted to know kind of what we'd sound like today.
Well, if you two guys do get together and start recording some metal stuff, are you going to try to look to recapture that sound, or are you going to make it sound like what you think you guys should be doing today? Because I remember you saying in '91 you were kind of still '81ish, and that was a mistake you made. Would you try to stay more modern today, or maybe go back to the old days?
I think the only point from a modern perspective would be, am I going to tune down or am I going to stay in standard tuning? But other than that, the idea of, making music that kind of flows and ebbs and guitar harmonies and that kind of thing, definitely has always been in our DNA. It's just who we are. And at the end of the day, if I want to be remembered for a type of music, that would be it. So I would think that we would definitely sound like a continuation of Harbinger if I could. It's hard to say when you're writing, but I do know, metal today it's tough because everybody has the same guitar sound and everybody's got the same brick wall production. And it gets me very frustrated sometimes to hear a lot of the music that comes out right now because there's no variety in it sonically. So I'd like to think that if we could recapture some of what we had back then, you would get that kind of differentiation in the tone of the music.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm hoping that you do get to put this out because I would love to hear the music from you guys. But Tom, I'm going to have to cut you loose in a couple of seconds because I want to play a few songs from the record. We have another guest waiting to come on. I know you're still active musically. Where's the best place for people to keep up with you and find out what you're doing, when you're putting out new stuff?
Yeah, we have a website, marsdictators.com, and that has our entire history right there. And then, of course, I have tommody.com that people can go to, which covers more than just music, but all the other junk that I do. And so, but marsdictators.com would be where you'd find stuff. It's the whole history of Jeff and myself and our recording history.
That's a beautiful thing. Hey, Tom, it was great talking to you again. Hopefully we'll do this again one day, and we'll have more time to spend with each other, and you'll have a brand new metal record out, and I would love to play songs off of that.
I'll make sure that I forward it to you as soon as it's hot off the digital press. Appreciate everything, Mike.
You got it, my friend. Take care. Have a great night. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Tom Mody of Harbinger and many other bands, a great musician. Let's go back to the old days. This is actually remastered tracks from the new release by Heaven and Hell Records of The Inevitable. Here's Edge of Insanity.